Hey, good morning guys. Like I said in the last video, I'm going to go over nConstraints with nCloth and Maya. So what we're going to do is actually attach a cloth-like mesh to a stationary mesh. And so what I thought of doing was maybe a mic stand with a mic that has a wire hanging from it. So let's go ahead and get started. First, we're going to go into the Polygons tab, select a plane, and I'm just going to make it as big as I want it to. I'm going to go to the attribute editor, go ahead and size this thing to about, I'm going to do 512 by 512. Go ahead and center that. Now it's dead in the middle. We have 4 units on each side of the grid. Everything's lined up pretty nice. And you don't necessarily have to do this, but just to try and force you guys into the habit of getting things lined up using the correct math, because a lot of models require you to have things lined up relatively perfectly. And this, like if you've seen the pictures of the wrestling ring that I made, you know, the ring itself is 20 feet by 20 feet in real life, so you know what better way to simulate it than to do it exactly the right way. So if I was to ever use create character models to be inside of that, everything would work out perfect. The ring wouldn't be too small or too big. It would wind up being just the right size. So with our plane selected, we don't have to add any subdivisions or anything like that. All we have to do with the plane is go ahead and select it. Pick object mode if you're not in that. So go ahead and select your plane, go to nDynamics, and we're going to do exactly what we did with that cylinder in the last video. We're going to go to nMesh and create passive collider. That way anything rigid body or cloth-like will react to this and not go through it. Now anything on the outside of this plane will fall, so maybe we could actually have the wire coming through here and then just hanging off the edge. So let's see if we can get this done. Alright, so we're going to go back to polygons and we're going to go ahead and create our mic stand. So I'm going to resize this numerically, but that's relatively where we want it. I'm going to center it first, but I'm not going to center the height yet because I'm going to make the height 4. So that's roughly about 3 inches, which is probably about right. So I'm going to make the height translation to 2. That way it sits right on top. Right on top. Now, what I would usually do, if this mesh is not going to be seen, like if I was going to import this into UDK, I would remove these polygons because you're never going to see them unless the mesh is going to be tipped over or something like that. I would remove these polygons just to save the poly count. And but if the mesh is ever going to be tipped over, if you're going to make it a rigid body or something, you would want to keep that, because if you remove these in the UDK editor and in this, you'll see right through it. So you'll see the bottom of this, and you wouldn't want that if it was going to be tipped over. So you would probably want to leave them and maybe just simplify it, but it's already simplified itself anyway. So the radius for this, let's make it about a foot long, so 16. That should be okay. I don't want to close Maya. Okay, so now we're going to make the actual stand, and we'll probably keep this really skinny but really tall. So I'm going to make the radius probably a 2, and the height probably about do 96. That's about the average size of a character model. So now we're going to go over to the translate, probably see, maybe 52 should put it right on top of there. We shouldn't be able to see the pole through the bottom of the base of this cylinder. This should be alright. And again, if you didn't delete the bottom of the base, what I would normally do is delete the bottom faces off of this cylinder, because you're never going to see that, even if it was tipped over, because you'd have the bottom of the cylinder faces still there. So this, you could actually delete the bottom faces off of this stand, and the way to do that would be just to move it up a bit and then go underneath, select the faces, and just delete them. Just be careful not to delete any of these cylindrical faces up here, because you don't want a big hole in the middle. Alright, so we have the mic stand. Now we need the mic. So we're going to make another cylinder, and this one's going to be really small too. Just go ahead and center this and raise it up. I'm going to do 128. I'm going to raise it up to 128 just so it's over the pole and we can kind of get a good feel for how big we need this thing. So the height, I'm going to do probably 8. No, we'll do 16. 12 maybe would have been enough, so we'll do 12. And the radius, I'm going to make probably 2. Alright, now we need to rotate it, so go over back to the Translate tab and rotate on the Z-axis 45 degrees, which is right here. Anybody used to UDK or any gaming engine editor, usually Y and X go along the same axis, meaning one goes left and right and one goes up and down. And then Z is actually the 3D space. With Maya, it's different. Z is actually the one that goes opposite of X. So Z is this line, X is that line, and Y goes up and down. So just a little tip there. Now you can, I'm not so sure if you can change that within the actual editor, but I know when you export meshes, you can tell it to export with the Z up, and that way it will export the right way to go into UDK and stuff like that. That way it's not, it reacts the way that UDK usually reacts with meshes. So let's go back up here to the mic. We're going to bring it down just to sit right there. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is just a demonstration of what we want to do. So that should be okay for the mic handle. Now we're going to make the microphone. Let's see. Let's go into this view. We're going to bring this over pretty close to that. It's obviously a really big sphere, so we want to maybe bring it down to 4. Yeah, that should be okay. And now you want to zero it out, but not the height. And now we can just move it over. There. That's relatively looks like a mic. If you wanted to get detailed, you can. You can just pause the video and then come back, and I'll show you how to put this wire coming off the mic, going down to the floor, and then probably hanging off the edge. So if you need to catch up, or you just want to do a little extra with this mesh demonstration, then go ahead and pause this and then come back when you're ready to put the wire onto it. So what we're going to do for this for this cloth, and I call it a cloth because that's what it is in the editor, but obviously it's going to be a wire. So we're going to make it, it's not going to be that big. We'll make the radius a 2. Actually, maybe a 1. It needs to be really thin. And then the height, I'm going to do 512. We want it really, really long. That way it can hang off the edge and look pretty cool. So all I did there was center it and then bring the edge, or the bottom edge, up to the very bottom of the mesh. So now we're going to rotate it again 90 degrees this time on the z-axis. That way it's laying down like this, and we can, since we already zeroed it, all we have to do is pretty much get it close to this mic so we can attach it. See, there's where mine is. Just bring it down just a tad. So if you notice, if we were to make this a cloth right now, it would not bend. It would just be like a steel pole hitting the ground, and it wouldn't fold at all. And that's because we don't have any vertices except for these on the end. That's the only vertices on this end, and then the other end. There's none in the middle. There's none in the middle of any of this. So what we need to do is go into the attribute editor with the cylinder selected, and I'm actually going to add 64 subdivisions to the height. And now you can see we have verts in the middle now. And this may not even be enough to really get a good wire shape when it falls. So I'm actually going to go from 64 to 128. And that should make a pretty decent wire. Now you can do more if you choose to. It won't make any difference what I use versus what you use, because we're only going to be really concerned with these front vertexes here and the bottom vertexes on this mesh, which are right here. So all we're concerned about are these sets along with these sets. Now, I mean, we are concerned with how many verts you have along your wire, but the amount is up to you. Now, once you change it to a cloth, you cannot change the subdivisions. So go ahead and make sure you at least do 64 for this demonstration, at least. And you can always play around with this kind of stuff after the video. So going to move this mesh just a tad bit over. Maybe about there. So we're pretty close. So now go into your vertex on your cylinder and select, actually no, first, I'm getting ahead of myself. Object mode on the cylinder, on the wire, go up to polygons, in dynamics, in mesh, nCloth options, or create nCloth, but check the option box, nucleus 1, create cloth. Now let's see what happens first with just this selected. Change my keyframes here at the bottom, around 1024. You don't have to make it 1024, but so here you see it falling. Oh, that's why it's okay. So now you'll see it falling. It should hit the ground, maybe bend a little bit. It's already bending, but it should hang off the edge. See, it kind of flattens out, hangs off the edge here, and it'll probably wind up pulling itself down. That's what it's going to do. You can see it kind of falling. So, but it's kind of flat, so we obviously, it's like more like a water hose. So we do have to do some editing in the editor afterwards. Let's go and attach this thing. Select your cylinder, vertex, select all the end cylinder or the end vertexes. Make sure you have them all selected. Now hold shift, select your microphone handle, hold right mouse button on the handle, go to vertex, now we want to select all these verts as well, which may be a little difficult. We may have to manually select them, but I'm going to hold shift and just drag, so I select as many as I can. If you miss some, just zoom in, hold shift, and just click on the individual verts. That's what I have to do. Since it's at a weird angle, looks like I have them all. Now we're going to go to nConstraint with all of them selected. Actually, I missed one. nConstraint, component to component, check the option box, create constraint. Now it's not perfect. There is a little bit of a gap there, and that's because we have this wire, it's actually flat, and this is angled. And it doesn't really matter for this demonstration, but this does show you how to connect vertexes together on two different models. And the reason I didn't flatten this handle out is because I wanted you to see how it actually works, how these work together, how they connect together. And it would have probably been a little bit harder to show a visual of how this works if we had them right close together. Now you can move this, you can move either one of them, and it'll still, they're attached, so it won't mess anything up. You just have to be careful that I mean, if you pulled this mic handle all the way out here to the left, it would make the cloth act weird, because it's, I mean, it would work, but it definitely wouldn't look right. So what we're going to do now is play and watch this thing actually, see how it works. So you can see the handle keeps the wire. It's actually going to fall. Falls pretty nice. Still looks like a water hose though. And there's no collision on the mic pole, as you can see. It's going right through it. So I'm sure you know what we have to do there. Just go into object mode on your mic stand, go to nMesh, create passive collider, go to the base, nMesh, create passive collider. And now, actually first, before we go and play again, let's go ahead and go into the attribute editor for the wire. And let's just go into a preset to avoid this video going longer than necessary. And let's do I'm gonna pick heavy denim. And we'll see how this works. So, there you go, guys. It's reacting fine. It's connected to the mic. We have collision on the pole and the base. So, go ahead and get creative and make your own stuff.